to how to become an ordained minister. Hi, I'm Philip Mountrose with Jane Mountrose, my wife and partner. We are co-directors and founders of Awakenings Institute, and we want to share some of the really incredible value of becoming a holistic minister for, uh, we figure you're a spiritually minded person if you're watching this, or you might be a holistic practitioner or the like, and you want to make a difference. And being a holistic minister is a great way to do that, as we'll explain how it might be right for you. For many, the idea of becoming a minister probably sounds like a mixed bag. I know it was for us, Jane and myself, years ago when we were considering this and it came to our attention. Um, it offers benefits, it's attractive, but there also may be some concerns that come up. Um, so you're interested probably in religious freedom, of course, and that means protection and liability because there's a division of church and state, as we'll explain in the United States. But there may be some negative associations with conventional ministers and churches, and we really get that. Uh, you may be worried you'll have to agree to some kind of dogma or arrangement that would limit your freedom. Um, and you might have to do certain activities or things that you're not interested in. And the idea of spiritual versus religious is a division that's growing in this country. 1 in 5 Americans identify themselves as spiritual, but not religious. And uh, we want to explain that and go into and get some clarity of that because there's actually a lot of confusion there that I think will clear up for you in the for this webinar. Uh, the religions, they bring up things like institutionalization, being in an institution, too imposed, maybe groupthink, black and white thinking, being judgmental, even hypocritical. And for people who are spiritual and probably people who are religious want to do something beyond themselves to make a difference, to offer something in a greater way. But if you're in the spiritual camp and you're not connected with an organization like a traditional religious person was, you're sort of left alone and isolated, and you don't have that community support, which is so important, uh, as we'll explore. So, to summarize, people, especially spiritual minded people, uh, religion is dogma, it's bad. Spirituality, higher awareness is good. It's kind of a split thing, but that's a rather polarized perspective. Uh, as we'll explain here, it's actually more nuanced and complex than that. And we're going to be sharing this new paradigm here that's not polarized into us versus them. It's rather us and them. And that's, we find, a much better and more holistic way to go about your life. So you don't have to worry to sink down to some level and do things you don't want to do, but rather you can view yourself as maybe an agent helping to transform the current system and raise it to a higher, more expansive level. Jane, you want to insert something here?
Yeah, I think this is something that really hangs people up. And what we have actually decided here at Awakenings Institute is that we would like to be part of a change of probably all of the institutions of society. And I think religion is one of them. Uh, some people think that you have to like tear the whole thing down and start all over. What we believe is that you can, by bringing something new into it, that you can begin to transform it and offer opportunities for people to explore what it means to be, for instance, we're talking about ministers, be a religious minister in a way that is supportive for you and also is part of the transformation of, you could say, the archetype of the idea of the institution. So, from that perspective, it's unifying and it's also a really good thing. And for many reasons, we'll be talking about all of that.
Right. So we're talking about how to understand religion versus spirituality and how they differ and how they overlap and they have a more united way of understanding it. And to get another understanding, um, the uh, religion could be defined, because what is religion as we're talking about it here? Uh, as having a sincere, common set of spiritual beliefs.
A religion, in its purest sense, is a group of people with a common sense or a common group of beliefs. So in a way, you could say, if I'm one of those people who's spiritual but not religious, I'm part of that as a I can't be part of that as a religion. And I think that's where that whole idea of being spiritual but not religious, it may work for some people, but if you say, well, my religion is, and ours, for instance, at Awakenings Institute, our religion is love. I think we ordain ministers, and we do have a group of requirements for ministers that are, but it's all about love. Other than that, you can, if you're doing something from a loving perspective and wanting to make a positive change in the world,
Yeah.
you're welcome
And
to be a minister with Awakenings.
we're gonna delve into that in a moment. But
Right.
our institute, our Awakenings Institute, is a nonprofit organization. It's incorporated as a 501c3 with the U.S. government, and we started in
It's a church. It
a
is a
church.
church.
And you
Yeah.
started in 2005 at a church. We can ordain people as ministers and more, as we'll explain. And we've ordained many ministers over the years who want to enjoy the benefits of religious freedom and the organization that we have, and that division between church and state, which is very important to understand. And if it applies to you, if you're interested, that would be a really good thing to go forward with. I just want to share with you also uh, what one of our ministers said after she was ordained for a while and was with the Awakenings Institute organization. I think this will give you a flavor of Awakenings. For me, she said, Judy Harris, life is like a beautiful tapestry. Becoming a minister has allowed me the enrichment of a strong connection to the Creator and inner peace and contemplation that cannot be explained. It has grounded me in my own spiritual practice, as well as giving me the opportunity to help others realize their own potential. It's given me a sense of completeness that is a more powerful than I could have ever imagined. It's pulled everything together and allows this tapestry of life to remain intact while allowing new threads to be added daily. It's never-ending journey of fulfillment and joy.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
She's been a minister with the Awakenings Institute for years and has all of her own things she does, and we'll be talking about that. It's not just like you have to lead church services to be a minister.
No, not at all.
Do many different things, which is very interesting.
Yeah, and most of Awakenings ministers do not have kind of traditional services, although you may have groups of all kinds too, and we'll explain what you can do and what that means to you. Jane, we touched on this key that can change your thinking. We want to really highlight that now.
Right, and as we already mentioned, a religion is just a set of beliefs, period, nothing more. So if you think that being spiritual means you're not religious, it's just a function now. We're talking about terminology as semantics. And if you're wanting to distinguish yourself from the dogma that's present in society, there are ways that you can do that and also receive the blessings of being a minister, because there are benefits, many benefits that we're going to be discussing. And I think one of the ones that is foremost in a lot of people's mind is the liability protection that they get from it. Because we know a lot of people and work with a lot of people and have our own students who practice healing techniques. And there is a liability issue. For instance, in California, where we live, a Reiki practitioner cannot touch people unless they're a licensed massage therapist or have some other license that would give them that right. If you're a minister and it is your spiritual healing practice, you can do that. You can touch people, and there are many things you can do as a minister that you couldn't legally do in other ways.
And
so
traditionally, laying on of hands, people are probably familiar with that, the idea of ministers doing that kind of practice.
What was that? I didn't
laying on
understand.
of hands, the traditional conventional ministers, that's something that people might relate to get an idea of what we're talking about, how ministers do that. But if you're not licensed, you could risk some liability on that.
Yeah, and Philip's going to talk a little bit more, I think, about that
Mm-hmm.
as we go through this, because it is the liability issue is a real one, and it's just one thing about it. The way that we look at it now, it's much larger than that. So for us, we're very spiritual people, and the kind that might easily say we're spiritual but not religious. But by embracing the idea of being part of a religion and defining that as love, we feel blessed to have an opportunity to be part of now a growing organization who are of people who are devoted to creating a more loving world. And
Mm-hmm.
this is a key for us. It's really personal. When you're on the church side, of course, the state side doesn't question the nature of your religious practices. It's very unlikely that that would happen. In cases where they might actually completely destroy a person's kind of a personal practice of healing because they don't like it for whatever reason. And we know people who have had that problem and
Mm-hmm.
feel much better practicing as we are. So I guess many people maybe here, or maybe maybe not so many of the very new people know. Years and years ago, Philip was an educator, and I was an architect. It was satisfying when we were in our 20s and 30s, maybe, but it after a while we really got burned out and wanted some. We knew we needed something deeper, so we looked to healing to find a way forward. Um, and we didn't have any thought at that time of being ministers or anything about what that might mean. But in the 1990s, we became Reiki masters, spiritual healers, holistic hypnotherapists, and practiced many, many different techniques, one thing leading to another. And then we became teachers and really started working with people professionally doing
Mm-hmm.
healing. Um, then came, and it's kind of funny, being in California.
Mm-hmm.
I know Babs also is from California, and you might be aware in the 1990s, there was a belief that California was going to have a big earthquake and we were all going to fall off into the ocean. So, with that in mind, we started doing healing meditation. So we would have a group of people. We'd all sit in a circle on a Friday night, and we would do a meditation for earth healing. So one week I was leading the group, and I can't remember how it happened. This is obviously a while back. But what I did was I asked the group to imagine what the world would be like if love was the guiding force for everyone. And if you just imagine it now, and we're going to actually do a little more with it, um, that completely changed my view of life because I could see if everybody was coming from love, there wouldn't be war. There wouldn't. There's so many things that just couldn't happen. People wouldn't starve because we care about each other. We wouldn't be having these fights over who's deserving of this and who's not deserving of that, and who should be deported. All of the talk that we're having because we would all be supporting each other and allowing people to be their personal best, which actually is the best thing for the world as a whole, too. So, having seen that, it just clicked with me. And right around the same time, when we were starting to practice professionally, also, that's when we started Awakenings Institute with this mission of creating a more loving world. And we weren't at that time organized as a church. That came later, but it really was wonderful with those things happening and starting to teach. Philip had been a teacher, so it was a very natural transition. It was like a dream come true. We had that transformation from being an architect and a professional educator to doing the thing that really felt like it was our reason for being alive. Um, so then, of course, enter the thought about liability issues. Like, what kind of risk am I taking working with people? Um, in it just happened. It's interesting how synchronous life is. Right at that time, then, I was actually taking an advanced hypnotherapy program, and the person who taught that was a minister, and she did a presentation on the value of becoming a minister, uh, which for me, that really opened my mind to that too. So we became ordained, and it hadn't crossed our minds ever until that time. I already twice, but um, when we became ordained, I felt like, for the first time in my life, I felt like I was in a place where I belong. And I know many people like us have that feeling like we just don't belong here. There's something different about us, and there's a very kind of isolated feeling that you get from that. But when we became ordained, and it's just an energetic, that at that level, it was just an energy that I felt. I felt like this is where I belong. And I have felt
Mm-hmm.
that way ever since. And that was in probably around 1996, many, many years ago. And it was just for me a wonderful, wonderful thing to have that.
Right, it was. And um, this feeling of deep belonging is great because that's a very emotional, spiritual experience in itself. Uh, of course, you can't practice medicine without a license. You can't do surgery as a minister. You can't prescribe drugs or recommend. So that's part of traditional medicine. Um, and if you do things like hypnotherapy and so forth, you're protected because uh, you can't, if you're not ordained, you can't uh, do things that traditional or licensed psychologist or psychiatrist, a licensed therapist could do. But you can do
Right.
those kind of practices with safety, uh, with if you're an ordained minister. And just a quick story in the we knew of a lady who had a holistic practice. I think it was in Maine, and she helped people with cancer, and she was actually very effective. However, the state government found out about
The
her, and
federal government. It
or
was
was
the
it,
federal.
oh, it was the federal government?
Yeah,
Okay.
because it's the federal government that has an interest in this, although the states can too, but
Oh yeah, it was the
the
federal
feds
government.
went after.
She got so the feds actually shut down and closed her whole business, and she had a very good, I mean, this was her livelihood and business. So the point of the story is if she had been an ordained minister with Awakenings or anywhere else, that wouldn't have happened because she could be doing that kind of practice because she's a minister. It's part of her ministry.
Right. And the way that it's stated in and the most of the laws or rules related to being a minister are in the IRS rules. And the one that is most, I think, applicable is the one that says that you can practice your religious beliefs for healing without having any problem from the government. In other words, you can freely practice your healing of other people if you are a minister. And they don't go after ministers for those things, but they do for other things. And different states also have different regulations. So
And
depending, and we don't know what they are in every state or every locality, but there are lots of different laws. Like Philip was saying about hypnotherapy, you might not be able to practice hypnotherapy unless you have some kind of uh, degree or document or something that allows you to, depending on where you are.
you know, so you'll just have to do the specifics. I wanted to share another description of being a minister with Awakenings Institute from one of our other ministers, Mary Witt. She said, the ministry has made a big difference in my spiritual teaching and my life. Playing the role of a holistic minister has given me a different look on what it means to be a minister. It's not just something you do on Sunday. Awakenings offers an approach that integrates the body, mind, and spirit. It goes much deeper, reaching directly into the heart and providing tools for making transformational changes in one's perspective on life. Being an Awakenings minister has a personal meaning for me too. I feel proud of myself for completing the program and recognize that I can be effective in this role as a holistic minister. I also see now that the title opens a lot of doors, the minister title. I'm viewed as a spiritual leader, The ministry gives me the authority to teach spiritual matters and conduct ceremonies, including weddings, funerals, and celebrations. Being ordained was a new spiritual experience for me. I was in awe and continue to value it highly. So that takes us to unifying religion and spirituality, which we've introduced, going deeper into that idea.
Right, right. And what eventually happened, we were ordained with another organization, then decided because of what we were doing with Awakenings Institute, with all of our trainings and a lot of people involved who would benefit from ordination, we decided to actually formally organize as a church. And so again, it was just for me very, very meaningful. Um, when I think about it, it's like being alone in the wilderness can be uncomfortable. And you're also missing out on benefits that you can have. So I just always have valued it. Meant all over all these years, I value it as much now as I ever did. And I wanted to mention also, just picking up on the idea that love is such an important thing. I think probably that's not in question with people here. But something that we wrote about, we've written about it and shared quite a bit, is uh, the golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And with all of the religious uh, fighting and warring and arguing that goes on, it's interesting that the golden rule or something like it weaves through just about every religion. And I wanted to just mention a few. Buddhism: hurt not others in ways that you yourself would find hurtful. Christianity, of course, and as you would that men should do unto you, do ye also to them likewise. Confucianism: do not do to others what you do not want them to do to you. Hinduism: one should not behave toward others in a way which is disagreeable to oneself. Judaism: what is hurtful to you, do not do to fellow men. This is the law, all the rest is commentary. Native American spirituality: do not wrong or hate your neighbor, for it is not he who you wrong, but yourself. And it goes on and on. And we have we have a list, probably 20 different organizations and philosophers. Plato: may I do to others as I would that they should do unto me. It goes on and on, and one of the things that is kind of, you might say, frustrating or strange, appears strange about it, is that these are in all of the pretty much all of the religious teachings in the world, and yet we don't see it in practice, where people are so divisive and they do not see their
Right.
neighbors as
So
someone to love.
so there's an opportunity in a holistic ministry to embody that love.
Right, right. And I can still remember when I was a child. There was a time, I think I had an older brother, and we must have done something mean to each other because my father sat us down, and I might have only been very young, 5 or 6, but we had a little blackboard, and he wrote the golden rule on the blackboard, our little childhood blackboard, and I remember that because it really stuck. It stuck, and I thought, yeah, that's right. And if everybody would again live with that as a guiding force, just imagine how different the world would be.
Yeah.
So people understand the kinds of things that ministers do. And you can just do maybe one or two of them and you qualify to be a minister. You don't have to be preaching or leading worship of any kind, but you can. Some of Awakenings ministers do, some don't. So there's that. You can be teaching. You can be teaching healing techniques. You can be teaching different things about spirituality. You can be counseling people. So you can be acting as a spiritual counselor, a spiritual guide to people. You can be healing. Of course, we talked about that. You can be a Reiki practitioner or doing holistic hypnotherapy or any kind of a spiritual healing technique That doesn't include surgery, of course, and you can't be prescribing drugs. In other words, you can't act as a physician without a license. So yeah, there is a line there, but it's not one that really applies in most cases. Some ministers actually are just managers of religious organizations. So you can be managing, you can be mentoring. That's similar to counseling. You can be mentoring other people to become ministers. You can be coordinating volunteers and doing volunteer activities, community activities. We have actually one ministry, a woman who has her own we call, rather than congregations, we call them centers. So she has her center in Africa where she supports women, helping women to be independent. So this is in Africa. It
Right.
can be so many different
Right.
things,
And
and
most
all of
people
those.
don't form centers. That's for some people they really want to do that. Most people are more individual and adapted to what their particular interests are.
Right, right. It can be big, it can be small, it can be whatever works for you. And of course, you can be sharing. You can be sharing your religious values. You can be doing drumming circles or dances, religious or spiritual kinds of dancing. There are just many, many, many things. So if you think, well, what I do that is spiritual for me wouldn't qualify, it probably would actually. And it could be just one thing. You could be doing drumming circles, period. And you could be a minister.
So we want to go over the blessings, and Jane's introduced that the idea of the blessings of becoming a minister. Uh, and wherever you are on the spectrum, if you're interested in holistic practices, spiritual healing, counseling, energy healing, and the like, uh, you're going to be enhanced if you have a sense of higher purpose and direction. And that takes us to a new paradigm that Awakenings Institute embraces, and you have an opportunity to be part of. And I did a little diagram here for you to get a sense of where things are normally that people think of and where we are in Awakenings and what we're ushering into the world. So the old form, and this has a lot of the old religious forms, is the claims of being the chosen people. And the new form that we're ushering in here through Awakenings and the like is embracing spirituality and the truth that unites all of us. And the old form, again, is following a leader unquestioningly. The new form is the truth is within. Uh, Everyone is connected with the truth. You don't have to be, quote, a specially selected person in that regard. Because we're all teachers, we're all students, uh, and ministers' roles include leading, facilitating, collaborating, and serving. The third point here is waiting for a savior to come. That's often found in a lot of religions, as you know. And in this new paradigm that we're experiencing here at Awakenings, the dream is what we imagine we can create starting in the moment. So we're creating the future by living in the present and what we do now. We're not waiting for someone to sort of save us, actually.
We're
And
saving ourselves.
we're saving ourselves. What? It's a good place to start. And the fourth shift here, the old form, is preconceived notions of God and the soul. And the new form that we're experiencing is following your own guidance, uh, connecting with the divine and acting accordingly with what you're being guided to do, not in some kind of preset fashion.
Right.
So, Jane, did you want to add to that?
I think it's just, to me, in addition to being very supportive, it's creative. And whenever any of us step up in these ways and create something that is more unifying and actually it is in harmony with what our hearts understand to be true, we are helping to change the world. We're doing our own what we can. I used to think that I had no value. I thought, well, there are so many people in the world, et cetera, et cetera. You know, I'm meaningless. All of us are important, every one of us. And I think that if we realize that the way that I conduct my life is my vote for the kind of reality that I want for everyone, and I can continue to envision it for everyone, I think that's an important part for me. Um, I think just to start to understand that what you do does matter. I think
Hmm.
that's the point, really.
Also, we wanted to mention an important distinction about becoming a minister, an independent minister, and
Mm-hmm.
what the different ways you could do that,
Mm-hmm.
and you're practicing the way you want, as we've suggested. Uh, so there is the idea, many people have heard of the Universal Life Fellowship, which has ordained millions of people around the world. And for a small fee, you can become a minister. It is legal. Um, now, uh, that has limited benefits, however, besides that piece of paper. And Jane and I just couldn't, just didn't feel for us that it has integrity. And I'm not commenting for other people to, say I'm a minister with a little piece of paper I bought. Uh,
Right, $5 and you're a minister.
yeah,
It to me, it
it's
just
probably
didn't
$20
feel
with
good.
inflation. But anyway, uh, and also you don't have the umbrella with an organization like ours, Awakenings Institute, a religious organization to help and support you, um, and to help with have those liabilities that we talked about. So you don't have that if you just want to go that route, and just the feeling of it may not resonate with you. It certainly didn't with us.
Right. Well, we have requirements for
Yeah,
people to
and we'll
become
describe
ministers,
we'll
and
describe that in a few minutes as we close. Yeah.
right. Um, and we want everyone to feel that it has integrity and that we're coming from a very unified place. So we approach it ourselves as that's what we're the you could say it's the space that we're holding for everyone who wants to be part of it, and it is meaningful. So it's different than just having and
Hmm.
going out and getting a certificate saying I'm a minister now. You know, that means nothing.
And we
That
want to
that doesn't mean you're part of something.
share more about having this more meaningful ministry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. So again, you can be ordained from Universal Life Fellowship or other. I think there are probably others like it too. Um, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you have all of the support that you want. I do want to mention how being a church works, that a church is typically organized legally as a corporation and it's recognized uh, by your state and by the IRS. So it's recognized both by state and the nation. Um, it provides legal rights at varying levels. So if you become a minister, just have a minister certificate. You have all of the liability kind of protection of being a minister. You can conduct uh, weddings, et cetera, et cetera. Um, if you want to take it to a deeper level, you can also become a legal part of Awakenings Institute, part of the corporation, still independently. So what I mentioned as a center, you could have your own center, which doesn't mean that you have to have a lot of people either. That you can be creative about too. But then you get into the tax benefits, and it's really the minority of people who are ordained with us who feel a need for that. But there are many that who are ordained and have become legally connected to Awakenings Institute. And then there are benefits like having a parsonage allowance and being able to declare all of your expenses as part of your quote corporation, which also separates your funds from your personal funds, which is it has its advantages too. So there are many benefits for taking it to that deeper level as being
Right.
part of that nonprofit organization.
I have a little list, sort of a summary of some of the benefits of blessings of being a minister, which we've talked about: using a spiritual, holistic practices that create wholeness and balance, serving others through spiritual gatherings and teachings, if you choose, practicing your beliefs with the freedom of the separation of church and state in the U.S., tax benefits the IRS offers to ordained ministers, and experiencing a deep, heartfelt sense of spiritual belonging.
Right, right. And the parsonage allowance, I wasn't real clear on what that is. What it is that all of your housing costs, including everything within that, all of everything you spent, for furniture, supplies, and all of those things, are are free from income taxes. So that can be thousands and thousands of dollars if your housing, all of your housing costs are covered without having to pay taxes on it, which is a very valuable part of it.
So we have we have the good fortune of one of our ministers being live on this webinar, Babs, uh, and maybe she can share a little bit about her experience as an Awakenings minister.
Sure, happy to do so. Can you guys all hear me?
We can.
Yes, thank
Oh,
you.
lovely, lovely. So I kind of feel like I met you guys already in the kind of little mini breaks we've had.
Mini breaks.
Little mini breaks. So I guess I've been with Awakenings now. What is it, Jane? Felt like just 3 or 4 years, something like that.
I'm
3 years.
not sure exactly, something like that.
I think it's right around 3 years. So it was during COVID. I was working actually with a different spiritual community. During COVID, the person I was working with decided they wanted to retire, and I didn't want to take on the whole that whole spiritual community myself and the community that we as a community decided to dissolve. And I was working as a minister at that time within that context, but with the closing of that particular um, religious community, I lost my ordination, and Jane and Philip were talking about that. That did provide me some significant tax benefits, and also some of that protection that they were talking about for doing some of the things that I like to do. Um, and so then I started looking around like, okay, so do I go get that? Do I go get the $5, the $20, 5 minute, like, okay, I'm an ordained minister. That did not feel right to me at all, just personally, because it felt like that was not integrous. It didn't feel
Right.
like it was, it just didn't feel right for me at all. Um, and Jane often talks about the synchronicities of Google. I was searching and Googling, and I was actually camping, and I found the Awakenings Institute site, and I just started bawling, literally bawling, because I was reading about the part about where it talks about Awakening Institute. I wrote down, it is a place of belonging where love is the guiding force. And within that other religious community that I was part of, that's what I always longed for. I always longed to be part of something that really had love at its center, and that actually lived that out, and that's what the ministry was about. And I have a degree in theology and stuff, but it still never quite hit at the same level as what I found through Awakenings, and what I found in the ongoing relationship that I now have with Jane and Philip, which is one of the things they haven't talked about, which is one of the biggest blessings, is them, their community, the things that they do. Becoming a minister, and I actually went the further route and have an own center alongside, so it's like a center of Awakenings, and it just feels right and beautiful and good, because I know I'm part of a community that wants to spread that love, a community that wants to have that extra step of being integrous. And there's also just lots of good helps and tips that happen within the ordination process. Um, that helps clarify. It help me clarify what it is that I want to do in this next phase of my life. It helped me clarify what type ministry do I want to do? And sure, there you don't have to stick like 100% to it for the rest of your life. There's an ability to change and
Right.
move around, but it just has been a beautiful partnership, a beautiful
Friendship
sense.
too.
Yeah, friendship. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a friendship,
Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
doesn't feel like
Yeah.
I'm out here doing ministry alone. It feels
Right.
Yeah.
uh, and there is this accountability where I have to send reports and I have to do all of these other little things, but it feels good because I truly trust Jane and Philip and their heart for what they're wanting to do in this world. Um,
Right.
Let,
Yeah.
let, Thank you, Babs. That is beautiful, and it's beautiful to connect. A couple clarifications. Babs
yes.
has a center, which most people don't. Most people are just ordained as ministers, and they do whatever they're doing, which may be very little besides just the feeling and belonging and the connection. Some people, that's it. I just want to belong and have this and have also the
Right. Yeah.
protection for
Which
it.
is fine.
And some
Right.
people, which is in the minority, like Babs, want to go further into a center, which is an option for people. And some people we do get very close to, and we're available to all our ministers, and some people we don't. That's completely up to you as well. But
Right.
but we
Yeah.
are here to support you.
Right. Yeah. And one another thing about if you want to be functioning as a church and receive the tax benefits and that deeper level of kind of benefits of it, you can start your own church, at least theoretically, but that is not easy to do. And
No.
the IRS is very reluctant to give people church status. You
Yeah.
can't, they can't. We started out with, I can't remember what they called us, a spiritual organization or something.
Mm,
And it took us 5 years to actually be able to qualify as a church with them.
right.
And that happens for a reason because a lot of people, it's like a good scam. I'm a I'm a church, and because another thing is we don't have to report to the IRS every year like other corporations. So Babs was mentioning that she reports her expenses and things to us, but none of us have to report to the IRS
Right.
as a church, which is
Yeah.
it's much better. That part also is very detailed.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever done that, Babs.
Yeah.
We did have
Right.
to do it for
Yeah.
some years, and
Yeah.
that's not easy either. So
No.
it gives you that gives you also just another level of feeling like you're not being controlled so much by the government. They can always audit you, and they may audit us. So we keep records, obviously, and that's why we keep records from other parts of Awakenings Institute too. But it's not likely. I don't think it's at all likely that that's
Yeah.
going to happen,
Highly
especially
up.
because we don't do anything. We do things according to the rules. We're not
Yeah.
trying
We
to.
we're following the rules.
Right.
Yeah. And just again, this idea of reporting expenses and income, that's only if you have a centered, which very few people do in Awakenings ministers. For most people, they don't do that route, and there's no reporting kind of expenses or anything like that.
Right.
You
Yeah,
just
and
have
so
the ordainment and all the privileges of it as we've
Right.
been describing.
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and that's one of the things I think just the whole being ordained kind of gives you that sense of some legitimacy, like if you're putting it on your
Right.
website or whatever that, and because it's not, it's a more substantial kind of ordination process versus like that 5 minute kind of thing. So it does look, I think it looks a lot better if you're just doing as an ordained minister on your website. It gives you that kind of benefit, that type of professionalism
Hmm.
versus just a simple little thing. So either which way, either route that people go, just the sense that you're part of something bigger, and that sense of
Mm-hmm.
that love is a beautiful thing. So
Right. Yeah. Thank you. And another part of it that I hadn't mentioned is when we were first ordained, there were requirements for ordination, but they didn't include actually some training. The training that we provide to our the people who are becoming ministers through Awakenings Institute, as Babs suggested, it helps you to focus on where you're wanting to go with it. It also helps you to understand the law and what you're allowed to do, what you're not allowed to do, those kinds of things. Because uh, what I saw in the other organization we were in is that a lot of times people became ordained and then they were just confused because they didn't understand what the rules were. And when you understand the rules, you can have more confidence that you're going forward in a way that is workable, that actually,
Right.
and actually where you're not going to have any
Yeah.
problems with the government coming
Yeah.
after you.
So you'll get
Because
enough.
they will come after people if they're like some people. I know one case of a person I know. She decided, and this is something I've seen also in just reading about cases. You can read about cases of churches against the government. She decided that all of her expenses were part of her church because everything in her life was spiritual. They don't accept that. There are things that you can include and there are things that you can't include, like your food. They don't allow you to deduct your food costs. But she just was doing everything and then they came after her.
Yeah.
So, and we don't recommend doing any of those things. The kinds
Right.
of things
You'll
that
get the guidelines and the specifics, and the ordainment process is really about a 36-hour home study. So it's enough to get you what you need and informed. And we're here if you have further questions. But I think you'll feel complete and confident and proud of becoming ordained through the
mm-hmm.
process and finding it a meaningful study in itself.
Yeah, it comes with its own guidebook and then tells you which documents from the IRS you need to have and read so that you understand their rules from their perspective too. So you get all the information, all the basic information that you need to be able to conduct your ministry.
Jane, did you have a brief visualization for us?
Yeah, I thought it might be fun for us as a group just to take a moment and imagine ourselves doing one of those kind of earth healing meditations, just or just to envision the world where everyone is coming from a place of love. So if you feel comfortable and want to join us, you're certainly welcome. You can close your eyes and we can just start breathing in the most beautiful love and light from the universe around us. There's so much support. Just breathing in love, breathing in light. And as you exhale, just letting go of anything that you don't need right now, anything that might feel heavy. Breathing, feeling lighter with each breath. And something that I like to do just because it's helpful energetically, because we pick up energy from other people, other places, other times. Just ask any energy that's not your own to leave your space so that you can feel like you're just surrounded by your own light. You might notice doing that you feel more present in the moment in your body. We also leave bits of ourselves in other times, places with other people. You might want to invite back all of your own energy that you've left in other places. And then just feel yourself in the moment, imagining now that we're together in the circle, all of those who are here with us live and those who are listening later, all of those of us who are interested in creating a better world. And in the middle of the circle, just imagine that there is a representation of the earth. And on this earth, everyone is motivated by love. They're guided by love. And just notice what the world is like when that's the case. All of the things that you notice now. Again, as I mentioned before, there couldn't be any war, right? Because everyone loves each other. We all love each other and we support each other. Loving our neighbors as ourselves, as they say. No one could be starving because we help each other. The environment would thrive also because we support a healthy environment. And all the plants and animals and everything living on the planet is nurtured. And just notice how that feels and how things happen in that world. And then focusing on what it would be like or what it is like. Maybe that may be where you are right now, what it's like to be part of the creation of that. Philip was talking about those paradigms, creating a new paradigm, creating a new representation of what a religious organization can be, embracing love and radiating love out to the world. And with this, I wanted to read Awakening's Dream, which this is something that came to us in the 1990s also when we started. Imagine a world where love is the guiding force, where the unique gifts that each individual brings receive honor and respect, where all are nurtured in allowing their gifts to blossom, to manifest the joy of living in each moment. Imagine a world where all of nature is also honored, so all may live in harmony and share an increasingly vibrant and beautiful environment. What we imagine we can create starting in this moment. This vibrant world will come into being as each of us empowers ourselves to live the dream now and share it with others. Playing a part in the creation of this dream is the mission of Awakenings Institute. And of course, again, in this dream, there's no poverty. Their love also illuminates the focus on fear and separation as we bridge the divisions created by race, creed, and national borders to coexist together in harmony. Of course, the environment benefits as all of the people in the world shift their focus to a more holistic approach that creates balance rather than congesting our planet with chemicals and toxic fumes. Increasing our connections with our wholeness, which we may experience as God, the creator, source, or simply oneness, brings us closer to making this dream a reality. We have an inherent connection with divine order. As we evolve spiritually, we unite more with our inner wisdom, which in turn strengthens our connection with all that is. This evolutionary quest is an upward spiral, taking us to higher levels of consciousness and wholeness. So it becomes a part of our journey personally and our part of the journey of humanity collectively. And with that, that's an image that you can hold anytime. Just imagine being part of that loving world and playing the role that makes you feel alive and that makes you feel good about making the difference that you want to make and doing the things that are enjoyable and stimulating for you, that are fulfilling to you. And with that, we can prepare to return to our normal waking state, just focusing on being where you are, grounded to Mother Earth, that beautiful earth. And breathing in more active energy, preparing to open your eyes, maybe stretching a little bit. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes.
Thank you, Jane. Well, as we're concluding here, for people wondering how to become a minister, if they want to go further, let me take you to our website, the description page. And let's see. Okay, there we have it. At the gettingthrough.org awakenings/awakenings website. And what I want to point out to you is just how there's quite a bit of information to add to what we've been describing here. And you'll answer some questions, some thoughtful questions when you apply, when you enroll. And here's how it works. I wanted to just quickly run through this if you're thinking of enrolling. You study a handbook, which we wrote. We're pretty good writers. We've written many books. So I think it's clear, and it will help you understand the roles, the philosophies, things to be aware of, some of which we've been talking about today. There's an article to read about the golden rule. We touched on that. We recommend an income tax guide for ministers you can get from the government. And what you do, you define your mission statement. There are 12 essential vows which you reflect on, sort of meditate on. Just to give you an example, one or two of them, what we're kind of talking about. One is, I strive to create and hold a higher vision for humanity. I support the transformation of humanity to a higher way of being. That would be one of the vows. Another one is, I honor all people, all forms of life, and the planet that sustains us. I vow to do no harm. And there's a
And
little,
can I say a
go
little
ahead,
something
Jane.
about the vows? That was when we decided to ordain. That was a really important question for us. Like, how do we create something that brings people in a unified way and also doesn't create any dogma? Because we didn't want any dogma unless you
Mhm.
consider living, being part of something that's focusing on love. If that is a problem, then you're not in the right place. But
Right.
um, before you apply for the ministry, before you apply to for the program, you can see what all the vows are,
Mhm.
and they all are just designed to, like, are you a criminal?
Mhm. A couple, yeah,
Kind of things.
just to be, yeah,
Like things to,
yeah.
things that bring us together. Wouldn't you say, Babs? I
Oh,
don't know
oh,
how
yeah.
much thought you give to that, but
No, I really appreciated the vows. I had to really think through them and
mm-hmm.
think what they were for me, and I think they were really important. So yeah, I think
It's
they're
it's
good
sort of
vows
a intentional meditative experience for your purpose and
for sure.
your mission.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Right.
going on what to do when this independent home study ordainment from awakenings involves: conducting a ceremony and write a short essay about it. People have done all kinds of interesting ceremonies. Some of them are more things like weddings and traditional things, but people have been doing unusual blessings and uh, blessing different parts of their yards and all kinds of things. And that's fine to be creative about it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Complete an open book final exam from that guidebook that you get with the course. Uh, and then there's a final personalized phone session where we talk to you, answer your questions, discuss what you've done, and then you are ordained and you get a nice certificate PDF, or we can send it to you too. Most people like PDFs that they can print out.
Right. Because then
And
if you lose it, you can retrieve it.
right, right. And if you want to enroll, there is a one-time enrollment, either 197 or $297 one-time tuition payment. And the enhanced one, the 297 one, it has more support and a visualization, a personal little ceremony that we do as you close. But either one is fine. And you click here to enroll, and then you'll answer some questions like we just uh, talked about, reflect a few reflective questions, and then you enroll, and you'll get your materials immediately online. And we generally ship the handbook too, the guide there too. So that's it, and we hope to see some more of you in the Awakenings Institute, and we wish you the best, all of you. Jane, did you want to add anything as we close?
No, that feels complete to me. I want to thank Babs for being here. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, great being with everyone now, and we know some of you we're already in touch with, and some of you will be seeing later, and we wish all of you well.